A few weeks ago, I did a video on the Grand Admirals of the Empire, covering everyone who held the position up to and including Gilad Pillion. Today we're going to be talking about one of them in a bit more depth, Grand Admiral Martio and his experiments with cloaking tech. Martio was among the original dozen Grand Admirals appointed 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, or BBY, and announced at the New Year's Fete Week celebrations alongside his colleagues. He was not as tactically gifted as some of the other Grand Admirals and typically avoided the political sphere, focusing on military research instead, getting him the nickname the Invisible Admiral, a fitting title considering his research focus. This focus was to make a cloaking device which could be mass-produced. Cloaking technology was nothing new in Star Wars. Dan Wallace, an author who's fairly prolific within Legends, detailed some of the history of cloaking in Star Wars on an old blog post where he mentioned their use in Episode 1, and a mention by Qui-Gon Jinn asking if the Queen's ship could cloak, implying the technology was relatively common. There were also cloaks thousands of years before Yavin, in Knights of the Old Republic 2, for example. These cloaks were made through the use of something called a stygium crystal, which could only be found in mines on the planet of 8 and 2, and by the time of the Empire, 8 had begun to run dry. Batch was therefore trying to find an alternative to using the stygium crystals, and he was successful in creating a replacement type, called the hybridium cloaking device, which did not require the use of stygium. However, these types of cloaking devices did have a downside. These would be the kind that Thrawn and Pellaeon would later attempt to make use of. The problem they had was that they did not allow the cloak ship to see or otherwise communicate outside of their own cloak, so they were rendered unseen but also blind. Frustrated by these limitations, Batch turned back to stygium, using a new method of acquisition. In the year 3 ABY, he used his high rank as a Grand Admiral to commission the use of a massive Imperial superweapon called the Tarkin, which was essentially a superlaser testbed. With this superlaser, he broke open 8 and 2, exposing all the remaining stygium and allowing it to be collected. The primary use of these new stygium crystals were in outfitting V-38 starfighters at a facility on a moon of the planet of Imdar, known as Imdar Alpha. These modified fighters would become known as TIE Phantoms. Batch also requisitioned an Executor-class Star Destroyer, the Terror, under command of Admiral Sarn, which he also modified with a cloaking device in order to protect the project. The project gained the approval of Darth Vader, and production began on a much larger scale. Unfortunately for Batch and Sarn, though, a rebel operation resulting in the Battle of Ara ended their supply of iridium fuel, which the TIE Phantoms also required. In the course of these operations, the rebels were also able to successfully destroy the base at Imdar Alpha, and the Terror along with it. Vader, not being one to forgive failure easily, executed Admiral Sarn. Batch, knowing a similar fate was likely in store for him, fled along with what remained of his fleet to the Outer Rim, effectively exiling himself. When the Emperor was killed in 4 ABY at the Battle of Endor, Batch's forces mutinied. They killed the Grand Admiral and took his remaining ships to join the forces of Blitzer Harsk Zero Command in the core, who we talked about a bit in our video about the Warlords. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at the career of Grand Admiral Martio Batch. As always, if you have any characters or topics you'd like me to cover, please leave them in the comments. Also, if you haven't checked it out yet, the first episode of the Legends book discussion series, Tap Calf Transmissions, that I'm doing with Eckhart's Ladder was uploaded on the channel yesterday. The next episode will be live streamed on this channel on June 13th at 7 PM EST, so hop in and say hi. We'll be doing episodes every other week, and each time we'll take turns hosting. The videos will be available on both channels after the initial stream though. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time.